and improved varieties, we said that this improvement mainly occurred in the architecture of the plant, right? So you can see the picture, it's very clear that, right? The conventional type had taller varieties with the long leaves and they are droopy, right? But this improved varieties have erect leaves with shorter architecture, right? So that's kind of major difference, right? And then before I go to the next one, so there was one question in the first class or maybe second class, if I remember, one of the students asked. So regarding this point, right? So we said that when we study about harvesting, right? We said that high quality crops like legumes and also the oilseed crops, they will have lower harvest indices, right? When you compare with the cereals, right? So the student asked the reason. Maybe I can explain it briefly. So the student is here or no? The person who asked the question. Can you please unmute and say yes or no? Are you here? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
So the person asked us here or no? Because otherwise it's, let me check who asked this one. You complete your work, right, assignment, or maybe, let's see, right? So let's go through this, try to understand the growth stages. Can you see the slides?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So for any crop, right? For any crop, right? You can study two aspects, right? One is growth, the other one is development. Okay. I hope you may have heard about. Let me. One is growth, and the second one is develop. Right. Growth is the you can define as a maybe you have to take down notes for this one, right? So you can define it as a irreversible increase in the dry weight of the particular crop, right? So it's a quantitative change. Growth is a quantitative change, right? But the development is the qualitative change you can observe in crops, right? So what it means by development is that the crop goes through different phases or different stages that can be distinguished through qualitative aspects, right? Qualitative aspects. For example, you know that you put seeds, right? After that, they germinate, right? Germination is one of the qualitative change. You see, you can visualize it, right? After germination, right, the leaves come out, right? The formation of leaves or initiation of leaves, right? That's also qualitative change, right? And then after some time, right, that crop flowers, right? So that's flowering is a qualitative change, right? Then after some time, after flowering, it will produce maybe seeds, fruits, right? And then it matures, right? And the ripening, right? That's the qualitative change, right? That's also qualitative. vegetative change. So actually, these growth stages are the development we see in crops, right? That occur in the crops. So these in rice, right? These growth stages, or maybe the developmental stages, right, can be uh, uh, divided into different distinguishable, right, phases or stages. Sometimes people use phases, sometimes stages, right? But for any crop, right, there are three distinguishable growth stages you can identify. The one here is the vegetative growth, right? Vegetative growth stage, and then the reproductive stage, right? And then the ripening, right? Or maturity. Sometimes people call it as maturity, right? So the vegetative stage is the period between the germination and flowering, right? Germination and flowering. So the we call vegetative growth stage, right? Because during this phase, right, for crops, what occurs is that mostly the growth in the vegetative parts, like leaves, shoot, or maybe stem or roots, right? So the vegetative organs develop, right, during the vegetative phase or vegetative growth stage, right? The reproductive stage starts when the flowers start flowering or initiates, right? Flowers initiate, so then they go for the reproductive stage, right? And then after formation of grains or maybe the fruits or seeds, right, they start getting mature, or maybe we call it as ripening, right? So that's called ripening stage. So there are three stages you can find for crops, right? So vegetative, reproductive, and ripening, right? So can you explain now, right? So if someone asks how you will define vegetative growth stage, reproductive stage, and ripening stage, can you explain? Is it clear to you?
Yes, sir.
All right. So take any crop, right? Take any crop. So as I said, right, the vegetative growth stage starts when they germinate, right, and then ends when it start producing flowers, right? So during the vegetative growth, I said that the most of the vegetative organs they grow, like leaves, right, the roots, stem, right. Uh, so the vegetative organs they develop, right, and then after that flowering occurs. Flowering. So during this vegetative growth, what the crops do is that they develop their vegetative organs, and then they start they initiate accumulating their biomass through photosynthesis, right? Because in the vegetative growth stage, they are especially their leaves, roots, right? Branches and everything develop, right? So when they develop their leaves, right? Leaves are the one, right? Involved in fixing the carbon through photosynthesis, right? Photosynthesis. So they do photosynthesis, right? And then they accumulate their biomass. Because of that, right? They grow, right? So root growth also parallelly happen, because um, the roots should be developed, because they have to absorb, right, the nutrients and water to support the growth, support the vegetative growth, right? So, at the end, closer to the end of this vegetative growth, what plants will have is that the accumulated biomass, right? Biomass, right? Then they start producing flowers, right? and then those flowers pollinate, right? Maybe depending on the crop, it can be self-pollination or maybe cross-pollination, right? Rice is a self-pollinated crop, right? So, um, so after pollination, right, fertilization occurs, right? In case of rice, they develop the grains, right? They develop the grains. So at the reproductive stage, what happens is that, we said that at the end of the vegetative growth, right, we will have this accumulated biomass. This so accumulated biomass is that it's kind of, you can imagine, food reserve, right? Food reserve, right? So this food reserve will be, right, translocated towards this developing grains, right? In the case of rice, it's grains. If it is soybean, it's seed, right? Um, if it is a tomato crop, it's a fruit, right? It's a fruit, right? Whatever the reproductive organ, right? So these accumulated food reserves will be translocated. If the pollination and fertilization is successful, right? So it will be diverted, and then because of this translocation towards these growing grains, they will grow, right? So they will develop, and then they will reach the maturity, right? So that occurs in the ripening stage, right? That's what occurs because once the grains develop, right, they start maturing. So that phase is kind of ripening phase or ripening stage, right? So this is what occurs in the crop, right? So if the pollination and fertilization is not successful, right, you will not have the rest, right? You will not have the rest. Uh, so that is kind of basic understanding you should have. But if you take the crop rice, right? Take the crop rice. So right here, this uh, stage shows like you are sowing, right? Sowing the seeds, and then maybe you can also transplant, right? There are two methods popularly used to establish rice, right? One is direct sowing or maybe broadcasting, you can say, right? The second one is you produce seedlings. I hope you have studied, you have covered already the rice nurseries, right? Where we produce the rice seedlings. Okay, so you can use those seedlings to transplant, right? So there are two major methods of establishing rice, right? And then once you transplant it, right, their vegetative growth stage starts, right? Here, right? So they start tillering, right? Producing tillers, right? So rice is a grass, right? Around the main stem, right? You will have like branches, right? So it's called as tillers, right? It's called as tillers. So that the process of developing tillers is called as tillering, right? Tillering, okay. And then these pillars start to grow as a function of photosynthesis, because when they develop leaves, they do photosynthesis, and then they grow, right? So then they reach a stage called panicle initiation. Right? So they try to initiate the panicles, right? These panicles will have this, developing flowers, right? Flowers, right? So that we call it as, in abbreviation, it's a PI stage. Panicle initiation is called as PI because P indicates the panicle. Initiation is denoted by I, right? So PI stage. So that's kind of abbreviation we use, right? So from the sowing, right, or maybe if you establish as transplanted seedlings, from that stage to panicle initiation is the vegetative stage for us. So it's the vegetative stage for us, right? So can you understand that? Is that clear to you?
Yes.
So the vegetative stage from the planting, you can plant as a seed or maybe as a seedling, right? So you can establish the crop. Right up to the panicle initiation, what we have is the vegetative stage. Right then, flowering occurs right from the PA stage, right? Because that will have the developing flowers. So that's why it has been put uh, towards the reproductive stage. So until the flowering occurs, and then um, the subsequent fertilization, right, and then pollination and fertilization, and then the grain starts to develop. So that stage is under the reproductive stage, right? And then once the pollination and fertilization is successful, then the developing grains will mature, right? So that stage is ripening stage in the rice crop, right? Um, there's important thing we should know, regarding this one, right? Each stages, right? I'll have, in the next class also, I will repeat this one because this is very important because, if you understand this growth stages only, you can align the management, right? Because different stages like vegetative stage, reproductive stage, and ripening stage, the requirements of the plants will vary, right? So we have to align the management according to the requirements, right? So in order to do that, you should know these stages. So that's the um, important thing about these growth stages. Why you should know growth stages, because at each and every growth stage, their requirement is different. So if the requirement is different, then you have to fulfill those requirements through management. So your management should also be different, right? Okay. So regarding these stages, we should know generally in the case of Sri Lanka, right? Most of our rice is cultivated, especially in the low country dry zone, right? Low country dry zone. So dry zone is the area where we mostly cultivate rice. Okay, so in the context of rice dry zone, right? You should know something. You know how many days it will take for these stages, right? Stages. Um, so I will tell, right? Usually um, from flowering, right, to harvesting, uh, from flowering to harvesting, right? This stage, this once flowers develop, after the subsequent pollination and fertilization to maturity, this third, it's denoted by number 3. This stage usually takes like 28 to 30 days, right? So this the last stage. It's kind of fixed in the condition of dry zone cultivation in Sri Lanka, right? For most of the varieties we grow, right? So this is kind of fixed, right? So this 30 days, 28 to 30 days. That's approximately 1 month, right? 1 month. And then this reproductive phase from panicle initiation and flowering, right, to panicle initiation to flowering, right? That also takes like maybe 25 to 30 days, right? 25 to 30 days. That's also kind of fixed, right? Kind of fixed. So if I ask the question, right? So I said that the stage 3 takes approximately 28 to 30 days, right? So kind of 1 month, right? Close to 1 month. And then this reproductive stage that ranges from PI, panicle initiation, to flowering. That also takes like 25 to 30 days. So then I asked the question like from PI, right, panicle initiation to full maturity. So approximately how many months do you think it will take?
2 months.
Yeah, that's correct answer. So the 2 months, right? So the rest, right? The reproductive stage and ripening stage approximately takes 2 months for most of the varieties we grow in the dry zone, right? So this the rest of the vegetative stage depends on the duration of that particular variety, right? For example, if it is a 3 month variety, right? If it is 3 month variety, your vegetative growth stage is going to take 1 month, right? 1 month. So what is variable is the vegetative growth stage depending on the variety, right? So these for most of the varieties we grow in the dry zone of Sri Lanka, right? So these second and third stages are kind of fixed. So each take 1 month, right? So from panicle initiation to full maturity, as one of the student correctly mentioned, it takes 2 months. The what is variable is that the vegetative growth stage, right? For example, if you take it's a 3 month variety, a 3 month variety, so the vegetative growth stage is going to take 1 month, right? 1 month. If a variety is 3.5, right? 3.5 month variety, then your vegetative growth stage is 1.5 month, right? 1.5 months. If it is 4 month variety, then 2 months, right? 2 months. And then we also study there are short age varieties, but the shortest we have in the country. Can anyone tell me what is the shortest we have so far in the country? Shortest duration variety. Anyone knows? It was in the slides, if I can remember. Under the age classification, that can be the shortest. Remember? How the classification started was so but the what is the shortest duration can be what can be the shortest duration. Can you hear me? So someone replied NIVs and budget Perumal. No, yeah, so we classified 2.5 to 3.5 month, right? So as the shortest, so the lowest should be 2.5, right? So if I share it again, so for a 2.5 month variety, uh, what's going to be the vegetative stage duration? Can anyone tell me now? So it's a 2.5 month variety. So what is the duration of the vegetative growth stage?
Month.
Huh? Can you please repeat?
Half month, 15 days.
15 days. Yeah, that's the correct answer, right? So that 2.5 month variety will have the vegetative stage only 15 days, right? It's very short, right? Because I said this reproductive stage is kind of fixed, closer to 1 month, and then ripening stage also kind of fixed, closer to 1 month, right? The only variable thing is the vegetative growth stage, right? So that's going to be 15 days or half month, right? Very, very short period for them to come up from this germination to clinical initiation. Right? So can you tell me, right? So you have a 2.5 month variety, right? And then a 4 month variety, right? 4 month variety. So what type of variety will give you higher yield? Did you get my question? Right. So I want you to just compare the yields of two varieties with a different duration, right? So one variety is the 2.5 month variety, so its vegetative growth stage is going to be half month, right? That's 15 days. So other variety is 4 month variety, so its vegetative growth stage is going to be 2 months, right? 2 months duration. So what type of variety, if you provide good management, right, throughout the duration, will give you higher yield? Can you see?
4 months variety.
Yeah, that's the correct answer. Can you little bit tell me the reason for that?
It has a good vegetative stage, so good photosynthesis and store many food.
Yeah, that's correct. Rather than saying a good photosynthesis, it has a longer time, right? Because its duration is 2 months. So if it stands for 2 months in a field, right? So obviously it will have higher duration of solar radiation. Because of that, it will be can you hear now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as the students correctly mentioned, right? So for a 4 month variety, we are going to have it's going to have 2 months of vegetative growth stage, right? So obviously it has longer time, right? Available um, to grow, right? And then do photosynthesis, and before it comes to this panicle initiation stage. So obviously, the yield is going to be high because what is available before it reaches the reproductive stage determines, right, how much can be translocated in producing the grains, right, in producing the grains, right, obviously, so it will have the high yield. But then, so one can ask, what is the use of having this short duration variety? They are useless, no, if if they have low yields because they cannot have longer vegetative period. then someone can argue that it's useless to have them. Can anyone think like what why we are having them still? What kind of benefits?
We can grow them more than 2 seasons, and we can increase the yield.
Yeah, that is one of the good reasons. If it's 4 months, sometimes it may be difficult for you to have two crops in 1 year. So if it is two and a half, then you can have sometimes if water is available, uh, you can have three crops in 1 year, right? So that's one of the reason. And then always, the when you have a longer duration variety, right? It's always some risky, right? Because in the rice growing environment, there can be chances for drought, chances for flood, and other stresses, right? So when you have a longer vegetative growth, if you can provide good management, that's fine, right? That's fine. But there's a less possibility you can have, you can provide the optimum management when the period is longer, right? If it is 15 days, okay, you can manage, you can find water somewhere else, right? But if it is 2 months vegetative growth stage, then um, throughout that period, you have to ensure you provide the better management to the crop, right? So when the period is longer, it's always risky. When you don't have water, you're not sure that you will get rain, right? Throughout, well distributed rainfall for close to 2 months, right? It's always the case, right? But yeah, right. So therefore, that's why, right? We kind of manage and then whether we can provide the management. So that's why in Sri Lanka, if you see most of the varieties they go are 3 and 3.5, right? And they try to manage. Yeah, so that's one answer came. That's very perfect answer. They can avoid environmental effects. So actually, the environmental stresses, right? So when you have short duration stress, but it is longer in handling those stresses. So because of that, right, there's high chance that your yield might go down, right? So because of that, if you see the data, most of our farmers they grow 3.5 or 3 months. So with that, I will conclude today, and then maybe during the weekend I will have hours access. So I'll put to your syllabus. So in the weekend, right? So I will let you know. Okay, thank you.